This is the afternoon, so bear with us. I think another few minutes. I think hopefully everybody's had their coffee and they're wide awake here now. So over the last few days, we've been hearing about the promise of OpenFlow, right? The promise of what it could provide, and that promise is flexibility, better TCO, programmability, lots of promise. And that appeals to many different constituents. They have the research folks who talk about how they can develop new protocols and experiment with new protocols and so forth. There's the service providers, and we had a few hours ago a very interesting discussion about how, especially for the network service providers, how they could leverage this in terms of providing better granularity and other ways of controlling their network in a better fashion. And then there's the enterprise. And when I talk about enterprise, I'm talking both about data centers, about enterprise data centers, and also about the campus. And what I want to spend the next few minutes talking about is what do we need to do to be able to unleash the power of OpenFlow in the enterprise. So today, when enterprise customers hear about OpenFlow, software-defined networks, it's a lot of buzzwords. I talk to a lot of customers. They all think it's great. They're not quite sure what they're going to do with it, but they think it's the best thing. Network applications, network OS, controllers, network virtualization. It's great. How do we translate that into really making the difference that software-defined network promises? Well, first of all, we need a killer app. Right? Everything needs, at the end of the day, a killer app. And the good news is, I think there are some apps evolving. We talked a lot about, I think, during the last few days about network virtualization. And that's definitely an app that's seeing a lot of pickup, especially in data centers. But there are other applications as well that people are picking up to. I think one of the folks talked a lot about using it for fine-grained policy in the campus. And that, especially with the advent of BYOD, is actually becoming something that we see really happening a lot. And you can think about it sort of a NAC on steroids, although I don't want to associate anything with NAC. But that is also a killer app. And other apps will evolve. So that's good. I think we've made good progress there. The other thing we have to keep in mind is when you're going to an enterprise, it needs to work with your existing solutions. I mean, most enterprises are not going to be a greenfield environment where you start from zero. The good news is that OpenFlow actually, in the way that it allows you to segment different controls, actually is a very good protocol for doing that. So we're in reasonable good shape there. The other thing we have to think about is, as we talk about the ecosystem, in terms of controllers, in terms of the network infrastructure, in terms of applications, right? Who is going to certify it and test it? Who is going to support it? You may have very large cloud providers who have the staff to do all that. But most enterprises are looking for solutions that they know they can apply and they will work. And so that's something we have to work on and figure out how we drive that as we build the systems. So how do we get there? What do we need to do? How do we get to enterprise-grade SDN solutions so that we can unleash the power of SDN for the enterprise? Well, so as I mentioned before, the first thing we have to do is, we need to focus on value add. You need to provide a solution that actually provides a value. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And that's very important. And there is a lot of places where SDN provides tremendous value. On the other hand, you can also rewrite the entire networking stack with SDN. The question is, do you need to do that? There's a lot of things that your existing hardware or your existing switches does very well, and actually putting it on a controller isn't necessarily going to add any value. On the other hand, there are other parts that will add value. So we need to focus on providing a solution and something that provides distinct value, as opposed to just, this is a great technology, we can do anything we want to do. That's great. But let's focus on things that actually make a big difference, allowing programmability, allowing you to do things in terms of policy that you couldn't do before, providing things like multi-tenancy and so on, things that actually leverage this capability as opposed to, let's say, rewriting OSPF using OpenFlow. We can do that, not clear the return will be. The architecture, again, leveraging that point, needs to be pragmatic. There's a lot of discussion going on. Are we going to have a pure OpenFlow solution? Are we going to have a hybrid solution, and so forth? Again, I go back to let's not reinvent the wheel. We don't have to, because there's so much opportunity to innovate in things that provide value. Let's focus on that. And we believe, and I think there were some other of the vendors that talked about that, the best way to use it is to figure out where you can add the most value and use that in a hybrid environment and let the existing infrastructure that you have, where you already have crude and trusted solutions that have been working for the last 30 years, let's not rebuild them unless we can actually add something that we don't have before. And there are places where we can, and that's where this fits really well. But we shouldn't just rebuild everything because we think we can. We've talked a lot about this as well, which is, this is going to be an evolution, not a revolution. And that's actually a good thing, because the idea is that you can have your existing infrastructure and you can start adding different elements of SDN to it, so you get increasing functionality. And it can coexist really well with your existing solutions, and over time, as new applications, as new solutions show up, you can add to them. And that's important because, I don't know how many customers, how many of you have ever said, oh, we're going to start everything from scratch, let's take the whole system down and start from zero. The other thing that's really, really important, and I think we can't lose sight of, is that at the end of the day, if we want to have an enterprise-grade solution, we have, the things that we've come to expect from different networking solutions are still true. And that means that reliability, high availability, manageability, security, all those things are still very, very important. The fact that you have an SDN doesn't make them go away, right? And we got to keep that in mind as we look at the evolution of this technology. We talk a lot about, okay, now that I have SDN, I can do this, I can have an app store, I can do that. I'm not saying that's not going to happen one day and it's not going to work in one way, but today when you download an app to your phone and it doesn't work, you reboot your phone. I don't know if you want to reboot your network. Customers are looking for value, right? They're not looking for adventure. So we have to make sure that we build solutions that provide that. And the reason that's important is because while we're doing that, we want to make sure that we keep the system open. It's very easy to say, well, the only way we're going to do all this is by building a nice closed system and you have to buy everything from one vendor, but that's not what we want. If we do that, we're going to slow the innovation, and part of the promise of SDN is to unleash innovation and enable people to innovate in different places. And so the challenge that we have to work through, and HP has been working very hard with different parts of the industry in that area, is how do we keep it open so that we can allow innovation but build solutions that can be certified, and so that a customer can come and potentially deploy one component from this vendor, another component from that vendor, but be assured that it's actually going to work. Because while some of the cloud providers or some of the very large data centers have the staff to test it and certify it and build it, most enterprises are not looking for that kind of an adventure. They're looking to have the flexibility without the risk. And so what we need to do here in the industry is continue to figure out how do we make sure that we, on one side, keep it open, but put in the necessary mechanisms so that we have that kind of certification, so that you can buy different solutions and you can combine different solutions and know that they're going to work. And we need to think about it. We want to have an Ethernet type interoperability, not a fiber channel one. So to summarize, in order to leverage the flexibility and ability of OpenFlow, we need to make sure that we're looking at business critical elements so that enterprises can adopt it. And if we do that and we focus on the outcomes, what are we going to provide, not the technology, then we can get the promise of software-defined networking for the enterprise.